Look, we need to talk about something that's been coming up constantly in the dating world lately. You've probably heard it before. A woman looks at a guy who's in his 40s or 50s, clearly takes care of himself, has his life together, and she says those three words: he's too intimidating. But here's the thing, when she says intimidating, she's not talking about what you think she's talking about. And today we're going to decode exactly what's going on in her head when she uses that word, because understanding this changes everything about how you show up in the dating world. Stick around, because what I'm about to share might actually surprise you on the surface level. So let's start with what most guys think intimidating means. They hear that word and immediately assume it's about physical appearance, like, oh, I'm too muscular, or I look too serious, or maybe I should slouch a bit and eat more donuts to seem more approachable. Wrong, completely wrong. Here's what actually happens. When a woman sees a fit older man who clearly has his act together, her brain isn't processing scary or unapproachable. What she's actually processing is a massive gap between where she is and where he appears to be, and that gap creates a feeling she labels as intimidation. But it's really something else entirely. Think about it this way. Imagine you walk into a job interview and the person across the desk is operating at such a high level that you immediately think, there's no way I'm qualified for this. That feeling, that's not fear. That's an instant comparison where you come up short in your own mind. The same thing happens in dating. She sees a guy who's 45, fit, well-dressed, probably financially stable, and her internal calculator starts running. Does someone like him even date someone like me? What would I bring to the table? Would I be enough? 2. The mirror effect. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When women say a fit older man is intimidating, they're often having a conversation with themselves, not about you. You become a mirror that reflects back everything they're insecure about. You work out 5 days a week. She's thinking about how she's been meaning to get back to the gym for 6 months. You've got a successful career. She's wondering if her job is impressive enough. You seem emotionally stable and mature. She's worried about the drama that happened in her last relationship. This is crucial to understand because most guys take intimidating as a personal rejection. They think they need to change something about themselves. But the reality is, the intimidation factor has almost nothing to do with who you actually are as a person. It's about who she perceives you to be and whether she feels like she measures up to that perception. And here's the kicker. The more put together you appear, the more this mirror effect intensifies. It's not about being perfect. It's about appearing to have your life dialed in to a degree that makes her question her own life choices. Women who say this aren't necessarily insecure people overall. They might be incredibly successful in their careers, great friends, amazing mothers, but in the dating context, when they're sizing up whether they'd fit into your life, all those little doubts come rushing to the surface. 3. The lifestyle gap. Let's talk about the lifestyle element, because this is huge. A fit older man usually signals a certain way of living: early morning workouts, meal prep, disciplined structure. Maybe you've got hobbies that require skill and dedication. Maybe you travel well and know how to handle yourself in different situations. When a woman looks at all of that, she's not just seeing a person, she's seeing an entire lifestyle that she'd potentially be stepping into. And the question running through her mind is, can I keep up with that? This is especially true for younger women dating older men. She might be thinking, this guy probably has his weekends planned out. He's not sitting around binge-watching Netflix like my ex. What if I can't match his energy? What if I'm too spontaneous or too unstructured for someone like him? It's the same reason people sometimes avoid hanging out with that friend who's super productive. You know, the one they wake up at 5 a.m., hit the gym, start a side business, read 50 books a year, and you're just trying to remember if you watered your plants this month. Being around them makes you hyper-aware of your own choices. The intimidation comes from this perceived pressure to level up immediately. She's looking at you and thinking she'd need to overhaul her entire life just to exist in your orbit. And that feels overwhelming before anything even starts. 4. The power dynamic. Now we're getting into the deeper psychology here. Older men who are fit and successful naturally carry a certain presence. It's not arrogance. It's just the confidence that comes from experience and taking care of yourself. You've been through stuff. You figured things out. You don't sweat the small things anymore. But that presence creates what feels like a power dynamic. And women are incredibly tuned into power dynamics in relationships. They're thinking about who has more options, who has more experience, who's more established. And when all of those things tilt heavily in your direction, it can feel like starting a relationship from a position of weakness. She might worry about being taken seriously. Will he see me as an equal or just someone younger and less experienced? She might worry about being disposable. A guy like this probably has options. Why would he stick around if things get difficult? These aren't necessarily rational thoughts, but they're real, and they all get bundled up into that one word, intimidating. Here's something most people don't realize. Women often use intimidating as a preemptive rejection. It's safer to say he's intimidating than to say I don't. Think I'm good enough for him. One sounds like it's about him. The other sounds like it's about her, but they mean the same thing. 5. The vulnerability factor. Let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough, vulnerability. When you're a fit older man who's got things together, you're perceived as someone who doesn't need anyone. You're self-sufficient. You've built a life that works. And that's attractive, don't get me wrong, but it also creates a barrier because relationships require vulnerability and need. And if you appear to need nothing and no one, where does she fit in? Women want to feel needed in some capacity. Not in a codependent way, but in an I add value to your life way. When everything about you screams, I've got this handled, she might wonder what role she'd actually play. Am I just arm candy? Am I just someone to fill time with, or would I actually matter? This is why sometimes the intimidation factor increases the more impressive you are, because the more complete your life appears, the less obvious it is where she'd fit into it, and that uncertainty creates anxiety, which gets labeled as intimidation. Think about it from her perspective. If you're fit, that means you're disciplined about health. If you're successful, that means you're disciplined about work. If you've got hobbies and interests, and a social life, that means your time is valuable and scheduled. So where's the space for her? And more importantly, would she enhance that life or just complicate it? 6. What women really want. Here's the truth that cuts through all of this. When women say a fit older man is intimidating, what they're really expressing is a desire to know that despite all your advantages, they still have something to offer. They want to know there's room for imperfection. They want to know you're still human underneath all that discipline and success. They're not actually intimidated by your muscles or your career or your age. They're intimidated by the possibility that they won't measure up to some invisible standard they think you have, and the solution to that isn't to make yourself less impressive. The solution is to make it clear that you value things beyond just achievement and appearance. Show interest in her thoughts. Ask real questions. Be curious about who she is, not just what she looks like or what she does. Let her see that you have struggles too, that you're still figuring things out in some areas of life, because perfection is actually repelling. It's the cracks that let people in. So, what's the takeaway here? When a woman calls you intimidating, don't take it as an insult and don't immediately try to change who you are. Understand that it's usually about her internal dialogue, not about anything you're actually doing wrong. The fit, older man who succeeds in dating isn't the one who dumbs himself down or makes himself smaller. It's the one who maintains all of his standards and discipline while also being warm, approachable, and genuinely interested in getting to know someone. Beyond surface level, you don't need to be less fit, you don't need to be less successful, you don't need to hide your accomplishments, you just need to make it clear that despite all of that, you're still someone who values connection, who has space in your life for another person, and who isn't looking for perfection in return. Because at the end of the day, intimidation is just a defense mechanism. It's what people say when they want something, but are afraid they can't have it. And the cure for that isn't to become less of who you are. It's to make who you are feel accessible. If you got value from this video, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going to keep diving into the real psychology of dating and relationships. No fluff, no nonsense. Just honest conversations about what actually works. I'll see you in the next one.